Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I would like to say thank you to what turned into literally hundreds of people that reached out to me on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and email. I did get the message very clearly that Valve had removed the game Active Shooter from Steam. Actually, I caught wind of it before most other people did. Still, everyone's diligence and dedication is very much appreciated, and I do hope that people do not feel like they should not reach out to me with such information in the future. Please do. In fact, I encourage it. I do occasionally miss things sometimes, and it's good to know that just in case I do, you all have my back. Yes, Active Shooter was indeed removed from Steam along with the developer's account and the remainder of his products that he had vomited onto the Steam storefront. And I say vomited because the other titles present under the developer's account were asset flips, along with the fact that over the course of the past 6 months, 6 titles had been posted onto Steam from this so-called developer. This is a very common thing to see with asset flippers, is a constant spamming of new low-effort or no-effort titles in order to turn a quick profit through what few legitimate sales these games can squeeze from achievement-hunting Steam users and the Russian gray market, where they can literally sell tens or even hundreds of thousands of keys for a few pennies per key that are then bought in bulk to feed bot farms or used to help feed their own bot farms in order to begin farming Steam trading cards from other titles. Also, it was reported that a Valve representative had released a statement in which Ata Berdyev, formerly of BCInteractive, Elusive Team, and 4 or 5 other sock puppet accounts, was labeled as the developer of Active Shooter. This would imply that Berdyev had managed to sneak his way back onto the Steam storefront after having been removed in the past for harassing Steam users, engaging in review manipulation, and publishing the now infamous Pickled Rick, a game that violated copyright to the popular series Rick and Morty. Berdyev himself had released over 20 asset flips onto the Steam storefront through various sock puppet accounts, had released hundreds of thousands of game keys through the Russian gray market, and was also a person that was featured on this channel multiple times in the past for his asset flipping and his horrendous behavior on Steam, which went completely ignored by Valve until his title Pickled Rick was hit with a DMCA takedown for its copyright infringement. The news that Berdyev was behind Active Shooter has been spread far and wide by traditional games media, mainstream media, and even larger YouTube news channels like Philip DeFranco, and unfortunately, well, I should say unfortunately for them, that information is in fact wrong. Now, Ata Berdyev himself on Twitter stated that this was not accurate, and while Berdyev has lied directly to me personally in the past, I decided to wait this time, and I'm glad I did, because this is actually far more amusing, at least for me, than this just being Berdyev sneaking back onto Steam could have ever been. Berdyev and his friend, let's call him by his publisher name that he apparently has tattooed on his arm, his friend Acid, conducted an interview with Michael Ken of PCMag.com, and my apologies to Michael if I pronounce his last name wrong. Michael did a good job in writing this story up, and given I bash on games journalists all the time, that should say something about the quality and objectivity of his work, and I will post a link to that article down below. Now, Berdyev also spoke to Mello Online of Sentinels of the Store. Now, full disclosure, I have worked with Mello many times in the past, and I do consider him a friend. Now, both of these men were provided an email by Berdyev that was sent to him by Valve, and as they both somehow managed to redact different portions of the email, I was able to see any and all redacted information, which, no, I will not disclose here. Instead, I will use the same email as the PC Mag article, as I do not want to contribute to people being able to gain access to information that was redacted for what I agree to be a very valid reason of protection of privacy. Now, that email reads as follows. Ata, last fall, Valve ceased doing business with you, removing the games you published via BCInteractive and Elusive Team from Steam. You breached your promises to Valve under the Steam distribution agreement by shipping copyright-infringing games repeatedly on Steam. You also manipulated Steam reviews and abused customers in various ways. We have confirmed your attempt to return to Steam through the account of Anton Makarevsky, sure, and his aliases of Revived Games and Acid. You and Anton have misrepresented yourselves to Valve in order to publish new games on Steam. We have now removed these new games from Steam. Valve will not do business with you again. Consider this notice of termination under the applicable Steam distribution agreements. And according to the information collected by Mello Online and by PC Mag, what happened here is a series of misrepresented facts that culminates in Valve doing the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. Now, we, and by we I mean myself and Sentinels of the Store, know that Berdyev and Acid are two different people. We also know that Acid had helped Berdyev sell his self-generated Steam keys for his asset flips on the Russian gray market until Berdyev had gotten the boot by Valve. We also know that Berdyev had made one exceptionally transparent attempt to sneak back onto the Steam storefront in the past, which I covered on my channel. So it is a very easy thing to assume that Berdyev had just given it a second attempt, but instead what is actually happening here is that these low-effort titles and asset flips are in fact acid, but they use Berdyev's banking information on the Steam accounts. This was a monetary decision for multiple reasons. One of the primary among them is that it is far easier and far faster to cash out payments from Steam to an American-based account than it is to one in Russia. Also, there are a number of analytics involved in the decision as well, but this would seem to be Berdyev trying to help out his asset flip buddy. And I don't know for certain, but I would suspect that this may in fact be some form of fraud for them to do this, but that's actually not an issue here in this case. Also, the whole school concept surrounding active shooter, and color me surprised with this one, was due to it being an asset pack that he was able to get for an affordable price, something that makes a startling amount of sense from a person who has posted asset flips onto Steam already. Now, it is worth noting that Acid did post this game onto Steam himself, listing his publisher account Acid and a developer account of Revived Games. This is typically done in an attempt to add to obfuscation, usually done by a poster of asset flips when creating sock puppet accounts, and the reason behind this is, as usual in these cases, to dupe unsuspecting customers. And I could go on picking these two apart endlessly, but there's really no need in this instance, and the actual people in the wrong here are Valve. The outrage generated by a game that was posted to Steam in a veiled attempt at generating controversy ended up backfiring due to Acid's association with Berdyev and his using Berdyev's bank account on his Steam developer accounts, and it's pretty clear to see what happened here. Valve saw a huge controversy brewing and looked to see if there was any way they could give this obviously offensive game that upset a great many people the boot. It made them look bad in a way that they didn't want. They then noticed Berdyev's bank account information, and this was all the justification they needed. And while Valve did right by booting another asset flipper off of Steam, their reasoning behind this was definitely not altruistic in nature. The representative from Valve did state that the broader conversation about Steam's content policies is one that they would be addressing soon, which is odd because I seem to recall in the past Valve going so far as to have a meeting with TotalBiscuit and Jim Sterling in regards to how they can improve, and what we saw come out of that was the completely wide open door that is Steam Direct. So I'm sorry, but Valve brought this mess squarely down upon their own heads, and while they may claim they intend on addressing the issue, I have absolutely zero confidence in their actually being either willing or capable of doing anything about asset flippers and other dirty devs on the platform. Now, make no mistake, Valve would not have ever even noticed that Berdyev's account was being used at all were it not for this controversy. And while it did provide them with the excuse they needed to be justified in removing this title from Steam, they only did so because this way they would not have to worry about angering anyone in the community about the game's right to exist. They had a tailor-made reason, an asset flipper who was guilty of copyright infringement, manipulating reviews in order to dupe customers, and treating Steam users like garbage. There are not many people in gaming that would be willing to continue to support such an individual, but this was only an excuse to avoid any potential outrage coming down, probably very deservedly, onto Valve's shoulders. Both myself and countless others have already said numerous times that Steam's open door policy lets in the absolute worst of the worst. And when you have no quality standards on what you're allowing on your storefront and whom your business partners are, you can't be surprised when you end up getting a lot of garbage gumming up your shelves placed there by people that shouldn't even be there in the first place. Now, Valve brought these issues on themselves, and they were warned that this sort of thing can and will happen by myself, by Jim Sterling, by TotalBiscuit, by Sentinels of the Store, and by countless others. They have refused repeatedly and often to listen, and these events are a direct result of their greed and their unwillingness and inability to take any form of meaningful action, and as a result, there are no others that should shoulder the blame than Valve themselves. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.